It is Friday, the 26th of August. I'm in the middle of commenting on a survey I did about basically law enforcement in Quebec's justice system. I'm, as I can be, I'm a bit long-winded, and so I actually already completed a 20-minute clip, and we're just about to go through it. So we're in the middle of the survey, not even the middle. And it says, how confident are you that people receive fair outcomes when they deal with courts? I had to put not confident simply because I have personally received unfair outcomes, even unfair outcomes that have been recognized by the court when I have successfully appealed those unfair outcomes. And those unfair outcomes, quite frankly, trampled all over my charter rights and freedoms, suppressed my ability to go to city council meetings and ask questions for at least 2 years, suppressed my ability to protest against clergy abuse outside the Unitarian Church of Montreal for at least 3 years, if not 4 years, all told. So absolutely, I've personally experienced unfair outcomes when dealing with the courts. So I had to say not confident. I didn't say not confident at all because, yeah, I do recognize that, I did successfully appeal and so on. So there are good, competent, honest judges who try to uphold the law properly. Unfortunately, there's also incompetent and or biased, if not even corrupt judges that are essentially not properly upholding the law and even misusing and abusing the law. How confident are you that people receive fair outcomes when they deal with police officers? Well, again, I had to say no. I had to say no because I've had more than my fair share of unfair outcomes with police officers, and in two different ways. One, in terms of police officers refusing to act on legitimate criminal complaints about theft, about assault, about public mischief, i.e. false complaints to the police. And what else? There have been some other things that the police basically refused, to act on legitimate complaints. Or they've tried to brush it off, try to water things down and so on. And then there's the other side of the coin where basically the police are falsely accusing me of crimes, giving me unjust tickets and that sort of thing. So I've had it sort of both sides of those issues. So let's keep going here. Okay, what's going? Why is it? Please elaborate your response for questions 1.6 and 7. Both police officers and judges, to say nothing of Crown prosecutors, because they weren't mentioned, can be... crap, excuse me, moi. How are we going to do this? Can be incompetent, biased, overly authoritarian, and even corrupt in various ways. So that was my answer to that. So let's move forward here. Access to justice, next. Do you believe that language and legal terminology can be a barrier in understanding your rights and responsibilities? Well, yes, obviously it can. There can be misunderstandings over language, French, English. And yes, certain legal terminology can be difficult to understand, so yes, can't say no to that. Do you believe that the French language can be a barrier in communicating with police officers? Well, put it this way, yes. My French is pretty good. I'm largely bilingual, but I'm not perfect. My French is far from perfect. I'd give myself maybe an 8 out of 10 for my French. Some might give me less. Others might give me more, but it's certainly not 10 out of 10. 9's pushing it. So honestly, I'd give myself an 8, maybe a 7, which means that there can be communication problems with the police when I'm speaking in French, and there have been. So that's absolutely happened. So yes, definitely the French language can indeed be a barrier in communicating with police officers in my case, because I'm primarily Anglophone and my French is not... It's very good. It's like my French is good. Most people say my French is quite good. but it's not perfect, and so there's still possible miscommunications and so on. Do you believe that the French language can be a barrier in defending and protecting your rights? Well, I guess so, perhaps especially when you're talking with police officers. But thankfully in Quebec, we can have trials in English, and believe me, when I have a trial, it's in English. But you often get a bit of mix and match, a bit of French and English in the trial. But and there can be misunderstandings, even in the court system. In your opinion, what are the barriers to obtaining legal assistance? Well, yes, lack of knowledge where and how to find legal assistance. Costs, absolutely, especially for low-income people. Even middle-class people have difficulty with the costs of particularly civil actions, where they have to go to civil court for one reason or another. That can be very, very costly, not to mention time-consuming and stressful and so on. Time required to obtain legal assistance. Well, in my case, absolutely. As I said in some of the answers, I sought legal aid for my appeal of the breach of conditions conviction that Dennis Galiatsitis handed down. Not to mention the excessive sentence he handed down. I appealed both. When I sought legal aid to pay for that, they refused. I took it to their review committee. They also refused. At that point, the Crown attorney handling that essentially told me, well, now you have to make a 684 motion to the Attorney General. I didn't even know what that was. I had to go look it up. And essentially what it meant was I had to essentially persuade Quebec's Attorney General that there were good reasons to cover the costs of my lawyer for my appeal. And I had to do that all on my own. I had to do it basically representing myself. I did seek help in various sources, even from a source out in BC, but they refused. They basically said we only help people in BC, which is fair enough. So I got no help at all. I had to do it all by myself. And this took months, and there were hearings and so on and so forth. So this delayed justice by at least a year, if not 2 years. And I did finally have the Attorney General cover the costs as per the 684 motion. And my lawyer did successfully appeal, and a Quebec court judge, Miriam Lachasse, did acquit me of that false conviction of breach of conditions, that unjust conviction for breach of conditions that Dennis the Menace Galiatsitis jumped through a whole bunch of hoops to find me guilty, because there was lots of reasonable doubt there. Plenty of reasonable doubt, and yet he ignored all the reasonable doubt and found me guilty. What else? Difficulty accessing legal assistance. Well, I think, we mentioned that more or less. It can be difficult. Language barriers, yes, we've already mentioned that. Cultural barriers. Well, in my case, I'm a white male Anglophone. Not much in the way of cultural barriers in terms of my own personal experience, other than, little few issues with French and English back and forth, but definitely other people, there's definite cultural barriers. So next, when faced with a conflict dispute, are you likely to request the help of a police officer? Well, I put no. And there's many reasons why, and one of the reasons why is because I don't want to clog up the justice system with stuff that can be settled out of court. It's very rare that I go to police unless it's a quite serious situation, such as a theft, such as assault, such as threats, such as public mischief. And believe me, Margot Ellis is not the only Montreal Unitarian who's guilty of public mischief as far as I'm concerned, but try getting anyone charged with public mischief. It's extremely rare. If more people were charged with public mischief for making false reports to the police, there might be less false reports to the police, if you know what I'm saying. I could go into that more. Police often make things worse. They often escalate things and so on and so forth. So unless it's really necessary, I would say don't call the police unless it's really necessary. So please explain your... Okay, so I already did, but I have found police to be next to useless in many situations, even when crimes like theft and assault have been committed. They often make matters worse by escalating the situations. I already said that, but that's actually my response to the survey. When faced with a legal issue, do you think the court system is the best way to settle disputes? No. There's many other, there's many things that get to court that never should get to court. There's all kinds of other ways to settle the dispute before it even gets to court. Now, part of the problem is because some people, they want to take it to court. They insist on taking it to court, so you don't have a choice in the matter. They literally refuse to enter into any kind of dialogue or mediation and so on. But the fact of the matter is many disputes that do end up in court could be settled quite reasonably through various mediation methods, just from better communication. Basically keep the lawyers out of it, quite frankly. I've been served with cease and desist demand letters falsely accusing me of libel and sexual harassment and even blasphemous libel for blogging about such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers. Well, in both cases, I just made it very clear to the lawyer that they were full of shit, if you don't mind my being rude, and I never heard from them again. I basically humiliated them, showed them how dishonest they were, how everything they were pretending, was libelous was actually very truthful and supported by evidence, and how the ministers accusing me of sexual harassment were in fact guilty of sexual harassment themselves. I was actually criticizing the sexual harassment of one minister. And she turned around and accused me of sexually harassing her because I criticized her sadistic sodomy fantasy that she posted to the internet. So, yeah, I think we've answered that. Why? Please explain your answer. In my experience, there are serious systemic problems with Quebec's justice system, indeed Canada's justice system. Many cases, if not most cases, that get to court could be dealt with better and faster outside of the judicial system. At minimum, attempts at settling matters out of court, even criminal accusations, should be made before trials are scheduled. So that's my short answer in the thing. Okay, we got 7 minutes left. Let's see if we can finish this. Do you think law enforcement and legal systems in Quebec are easily accessible? Well, no, unless you're rich and powerful, in which they're rather too easily accessible. Why? Please explain your answer. I've explained in responses to other questions, certainly if one is low income, access to justice is close to non-existent. And as I mentioned, even for middle class people, it can be quite difficult to access because it's just too expensive, not to mention time consuming and often not getting a satisfactory result anyway. Are there elements of your experience with law enforcement that you wish to share? Is there an important element this survey has not touched upon? Well, I've already done plenty of that, but let's see how I answered. Yes, and I've shared them in my answers to other questions. I would be happy to share elements of my experience with law enforcement and follow-up communications. You may reach me at robandedgar59@gmail.com. You may also find me on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. Just search Rob and Edgar and SPVM for my tweets, blog posts, and videos about my experience with law enforcement in Montreal. Here's a very recent YouTube video. That YouTube video, I'm not going to play it, but it's basically my asking questions at the most recent Montreal City Council meeting last Tuesday, arising out of the SPVM police officers threatening a protester with a $300 ticket for noise violation. Are there elements of your experience with access to justice that you wish to share? Is there a serious problem or issue this survey didn't address when it comes to access to justice? I have shared some, but by no means all, of my experiences with access to justice in my answers to other questions. I think there are serious systemic problems that you may not have addressed in the survey. There are problems with how law enforcement and the criminal justice system currently operate that certainly delay justice and in many cases deny justice in one way or another. So I don't go into a lot of detail, but just making that general point. Conclusion. Next, we would like to ask a few demographic questions for statistical purposes. Yes, I'm a man. Thank you very much. It's quite interesting. They got quite a list there. So gender fluid man, non-binary, trans man, trans woman, two spirit, trans feminine, whatever that is, woman, trans masculine. Prefer not to say other. I don't mind saying I'm a man. Next, what age range do you fall under? Well, 61 to 70. Still in the sexagenarian range. Are you an indigenous person? That is First Nations, Métis, or Inuit, not indigenous. Oh, yeah, this is all about different racial. Please check all that apply. White. So yes, I'm a white male, privileged in some ways. I actually have the unique honor and privilege of being falsely accused of violating Canada's blasphemy law by atheist Unitarian Universalists in the 21st century. If that's not privilege, I don't know what it is. What is your religion? Other. I could put no religious affiliation. You know, I did join the Unitarian Church of Montreal. I did join the Unitarian Universalist religious community. I did so on the basis of agreeing with their principles and ideals. Unfortunately, they're a bunch of hypocrites who make a total mockery of everything they claim to believe in on a continual basis. So at present, I'm certainly not affiliated with any religious group. And one could describe my religious beliefs as other, but they are monotheistic, I will say that. Overall, are you satisfied with the performance of Quebec's law enforcement and justice system? Well, obviously not. Why? Incompetent and or corrupt SPVM police officers have repeatedly refused to act on legitimate complaints I have brought arising out of genuine crimes such as theft, assault, and public mischief, even when video evidence has been available to them. That doesn't mean video evidence has been available in every case, but it has certainly been available in several of them. SPVM police officers have repeatedly falsely accused me of crimes based on trumped-up complaints brought against me by Montreal Unitarians seeking to suppress my peaceful public protesting against Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse, etc., outside the Unitarian Church of Montreal. In fact, I have added protests against this SPVM police repression of my charter rights and freedoms to my protests outside the Unitarian Church of Montreal, and have also protested outside SPVM PDQ 11. And if I remember correctly, I think it always was PDQ 11, but there's been more than once. There's been several occasions, even spread apart by a good number of years, almost a decade, where I protested outside PDQ 11. It no longer exists. It's now merged into PDQ 9. So I provide a link to a playlist of videos of my protest, I believe it was last Sunday, where I specifically addressed that issue. As a result of what happened in terms of the woman being threatened with a $300 fine. And then I also linked to the Emerson Avenger blog, hashtag SPVM, which links to all my blog posts about SPVM police repression of my protest and so on. Needless to say, I could not be charged with the dubious criminal charges that SPVM officers saw fit to arrest me on if Quebec Crown prosecutors decided they were unjustified and refused to bring charges against me on the basis of trumped-up complaints. So, overzealous, incompetent, and or corrupt Crown prosecutors are a problem too. Ditto for certain judges. I think I forgot to mention the tin pot totalitarian judge I faced in Montreal Municipal Court while contesting an unjust ticket an authoritarian SPVM cop handed me for writing chalk slogans during my protest. That's old news, goes back quite a while, but yeah, there's some pretty authoritarian judges at the Montreal Municipal Court, not to mention Quebec Court. I will add that there are very serious systemic problems with Quebec's criminal justice system that I would be happy to discuss with you if you choose to contact me. You may contact me at robinedgar59@gmail.com for further information and suggestions for improvements to policing and the criminal justice system in Quebec. Thank you, Robin Edgar, a.k.a. Robert Michael Edgar. What else we got here? Looks like we're almost done. I think that's it. Yep, submit. Come on. Thank you. So we submitted it.